This isn't just any ordinary conversation, it's a strategic partnership between DRPG and Tillon, two powerhouses coming together to explore the intersections of leadership and organisational effectiveness. In the spotlight today, we have two remarkable figures joining me, Dale Parmenter, CEO of DRPG, and Toby Basford, founder and managing director of Tillon Group. So let's start right there, shall we? What does this partnership mean between DRPG and Tillon? Toby, can you explain?
Tillon and DRPG have a really similar shared vision, and that vision ultimately, in large parts, around how do we really motivate, engage, and excite the majority of people in their workplaces? How do we make sure that they show up at work every day and they feel motivated, highly engaged to bring the best of themselves to the places that they spend so much of their time?
From our point of view, we look at organisations and we bring their strategy to life, both internally and externally. Where we also passionate of is how we can help leaders get their message and how we can get leaders more visible within their organisation. What Tillon do, of course, is help the leaders then develop their strategy and develop their skills to become better leaders. So absolutely, it's complementary between the two of us.
Sounds like the perfect recipe. To kick us off, let's see where are we at right now. What are the challenges and opportunities that leaders and organisations are facing in the current climate? What do you think?
It's a really tough market. It doesn't matter what sector you're in, what market you're in, it's incredibly tough. And when things get tough, it needs strong leadership. And sometimes the decisions that are going to be made are going to be tough decisions to match the market. So, and I think it's a very uncertain market. I don't think we've had this level of uncertainty for so long. And that then means decision-making process, being able to communicate internally and externally becomes a challenge, because what do you say? You can't keep saying the same message because things at times don't feel like they're moving forward strong enough. So it's down to the leadership teams to really energise the team, keep them motivated. And for us, I always talk about leaders and the importance of communication. For me, any leader that doesn't embrace communication doesn't deserve to be a leader. It's a fundamental part of their job. And so that's where I suppose the skills come from you guys to how we can skill those leaders up to keep thinking of new ideas, keep innovating of how to keep the teams motivated moving forward.
And I think one of the big mistakes I think leaders have made is that they've tried to sugarcoat something that is actually just very hard. And I think one of the real opportunities actually for leaders in the time that we're in right now is that we can actually discover a real humanity in the midst of what's a very, very difficult time. And I think it is a funny kind of an opportunity, but I think it tests culture. And it's an opportunity for organisations to be brave around how human they're prepared to be in their communication, in the way they relate to people, how empathic they'll be in the way in which sometimes they've got to make very, very difficult decisions. But those decisions live long in the life of psychology of organisations. And so I think there is an opportunity for leaders to be bold, but to be very, very human and authentic in the way that they're leading through a difficult time.
And I think on that, one of the most powerful tools a leader has is being vulnerable.
Yeah,
and none of us are perfect. We're going to screw up from time to time, and to admit that. Where you see a really bad example of that is politicians, because they never do anything wrong, so they never apologise. And actually, as leaders themselves, if they had some of that vulnerability, they would actually see themselves grow. And so in an organisation, whether it's a corporate, whether it's government, whatever it is, leaders have to show their true selves and be vulnerable and be humble from time to time as well.
Have you got any examples or how organisations right now are navigating these challenges and even embracing them in a positive way? We've got an idealistic way that they should be doing it. Are people living to that right now?
We know that one of the really tough things that some organisations have had to do in the way in which they're managing cost in a really difficult market is that we're dealing with a conversation around redundancy. that at a level perhaps that we've not done for quite a number of years. And I guess, back to the kind of thing I was saying a moment ago, I've seen organisations that have gone in a very, what I feel like is a very clinical approach. So even kind of closed offices sent blanket communication, emails out to people about who's going to be being made redundant, cutting managers out of the conversation. And so it ends up being almost reinforcing hierarchy, creating more distance, which for me, the damage that does, both directly to the individuals, but actually to the social fabric of an organisation, is actually really undermining, because you're dealing with an environment where people have long-term friendships, long-term relationships, and kind of it feeling almost cloak and dagger. I understand feels like we've got a consistent message and we've got this really nicely laid out process, but it deeply damages culture. And so there's certainly a couple of organisations that I've worked with where that's been the approach that they've taken, and I still think they're living with the very deep consequences of that, and I think they will be for quite some time. On the flip of that, I've seen organisations that have almost tried to manage that message less and lean into a deeply personal way of delivering that message. So managers, rather than doing stuff remotely, making the effort to be in person, going the extra mile. And it's that difference between efficiency and effectiveness. You can be efficient in the way you do something, but it actually being deeply undermining for the culture and for the long-term effectiveness of your organisation. And people remember the last moment in an organisation. I always say to people, actually it's the way that an organisation lets somebody go that tells you about their culture more than how you welcome them through the front door.
And I think that the times when we do get uncertainty, there can be that temptation to cut comms. Now, I'm not talking about the big flashy millions and millions of pounds on different comms channels, but they just reduce the level of comms down. Or it starts to become, as you say, a push out on email or even text. Sometimes I've seen that happen. And I think it's really important when we look at all the channels that we have, not to use multiple channels all the time, but what is the best channel for the leader to be more visible? And if that's face-to-face, then you should be pushing face-to-face and not try and go down a digital route. If it's digital, then absolutely push digital. So what's right for the leader to get their message across in an authentic and humble way, and invest in that. And I think what we can do is look at that from the comms visibility point of view. What is the best channel, and how can we make that leader be able to communicate effectively and transparently? But then also from your point of view, it's you can put the coaching and the training in place to be able to make that leader more effective and skilled to be able to put those serious messages across. And I think that's the power of what we're talking about here, of being able to do the whole package.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And those tips are gonna depend on the size and the scale of a company, and the size of a leadership team potentially. But there's a lot clearly that leaders can be doing right now. I guess to put you on the spot and wrap up this topic, in just a few words for our audience potentially flicking through their socials on their commute, what would your single piece of advice be to better their leadership today in this current climate?
For me, it would be visible. Don't hide away, because when things get tough, the instant reaction for some leaders is to disappear. And it's almost a head in the sand. So face into it, how difficult it is. It won't be as difficult as you think it will be.
I would probably just add to that and say, lean into the hard conversations, but in a really personal way. Because I think what you find is things just go so much better. People receive you, they receive reality. People are not daft. They understand stuff's hard. They understand leaders have got to make tough calls. But the way in which you show up in those meetings. So face the honest reality, be straightforward, but as I say, be human, be vulnerable in the process.
I think also it's listen.
Yeah.
That you won't have all the answers. So you need to rely on the team to give you some of that feedback. So listen to the team. And when you look at organisations and some of the problems organisations have, majority of the time the solutions to those problems sit with the team. And they might be right at the front line, but if you don't ask them, you don't listen to them, it won't change. So listen to the team.
Thank you both. So that's where we are right now.